Everybody, welcome Sports Lounge one more time, equaling that 1.5 million listeners we have worldwide. We're going to go all the way out to Michigan State University, talk to their legendary wrestling coach, Tom Minkel. Coach, thank you.
Oh, certainly. Glad to be on.
Coach, real quickly, on a side note, you all compete at the most difficult time of the year between blizzards, hurricanes, ice storms, freeze storms. Then they send you down to Fort Lauderdale, which is the most beautiful place in the world. But during hurricane season, you guys don't get any breaks, do you?
You know, no one said it would be easy.
Coach, you've been nearly 20 years as a head wrestling coach. You've seen some incredible growth in this sport. What is some of the biggest things you've seen come out of the sport the last several years?
I think the biggest difference is the fact that youth wrestling has grown to such a large extent. Kids now have an opportunity to compete not only locally as young men, but as they come up through the junior high and high school ranks, they have just enormous opportunities to compete. Now at the state level and then at the national level, and so I think that combined with the fact that the internet gives them more access to more technique, you have just a much stronger base at the youth level, which of course translates into better competition and stronger athletes once they get to college.
Absolutely, Coach. The other thing I believe is happening out there is years ago we saw a de-escalation of the sport in college. Now we're seeing some of the lower-end schools, the D2s, certainly the 1AAs, are now adding wrestling as a club, and now they're migrating that to a varsity-level sport. Have you seen that growth in D1 as of yet?
Yeah, I don't think that growth really has hit D1 yet. However, I do think that the numbers and the demand for wrestling will create pressure on Division I schools to certainly maintain and then hopefully add the sport back again. So I think as the numbers grow and as young men talk to schools about admission and then create some pressure, hopefully that will result in some additional opportunities at the D1 level.
Coach, what is the likelihood now of the NCAA changing the date of the big tournament so it doesn't coincide with the other big tournament, which is basketball?
Well, for the first time, I think it's seriously being considered, a shift in seasons, and it's being supported by the National Wrestling Coaches Association, and I think at the NCAA level now there's a committee that is seriously looking at a change in dates. The difficult thing, though, is that it has kind of an effect on our international wrestling, and I think they want to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences that might happen that we wouldn't foresee. So, but it is certainly being considered, I think, more seriously now than ever before.
Yeah, for a newbie to this, as I've been interviewing college coaches for the last several years, and prior to that, I really didn't know anything much about the NCAA. Obviously, over the last several years, I've had a chance to click it on TV, go online, watch it, even follow it throughout the Olympics. And I have to say, for the listeners and for other fans that are out there, this is probably one of the most pure forms of competition that I've ever witnessed. The NCAA has the best of the best. And unfortunately, sometimes the media talks about the low score, and we think of a poor football game when in reality, it is probably some of the best matches you'll ever see.
Yeah, and I was very pleased this year, and actually over the last probably 5 years, that ESPN really has stepped up with their coverage of the NCAAs. It used to be kind of a tape-delayed situation, but however, in the last few years, they've covered more and more hours of the NCAA. And then, of course, now this year, they covered, I think, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the finals, of course, were live right in prime time. So, I think they have recognized that there is an audience for college wrestling, and they need to service it.
Absolutely. With the growth of MMA, when I was watching the trials, I was actually seeing some of Randy Couture's folks, Randy Jackson's folks, Liddell's folks. It just seems years ago, you used to see football coaches showing up at different college campuses to watch athletes. Now the MMA guys who went through college are now looking for the next superstars. That adds a lot of validity to what you all do.
Well, the whole MMA, UFC growth has really been good for wrestling, because now for the first time, college wrestlers have an opportunity to make a good living, in a sport that's certainly related well to wrestling. And here, of course, at Michigan State, Rashad Evans has been our marquee MMA fighter who's gone on, and we have Gray Maynard who's out there as well. But it has really been, I think, good for wrestling because of the just enormous exposure that the UFC and the MMA fighting has created.
The big thing I really believe in my heart that MMA has done for wrestling is that if you don't have a 4-year degree or at least a 2-year degree and you're not trained in the American style of wrestling, you are not going to make it on any circuit. We see it all the time. A lot of Asians are coming over to the U.S. to be trained at campuses all across the United States to refine their techniques because of what you all have done for the last 100 years in wrestling. The whole world is finally caught on. That's got to feel kind of good that you guys have been doing something right for so long, and just now the hottest sport in TV, you're the focal points.
Well, I think you're 100% right. Wrestling has, it is the world's oldest sport, and of course is such a pure and marvelous form of combat. And but now, they really hit the right combination with the martial arts, the boxing, and the wrestling together. And then, of course, they've done a terrific job of marketing and televising the sport. So now you really do have something that has just wide appeal, and that, I think, again, will trickle back into wrestling, and it works both ways. It's good for us because, I think we get more exposure, and then it's good for our wrestlers because they have an opportunity to move on to some other opportunities.
Absolutely, Coach. And before we let you go, you've had a very nice recruiting class that's showing up. Some big guys, it looks like.
Well, right now our marquee wrestler, of course, is Franklin Gomez, who was the NCAA champion last year at 133, and he's returning this year for his senior year, and he's kind of helped drive our recruiting classes, and we've got a very strong group coming in right now, and we're looking forward to some pretty good years here in the near future.
Coach, I want to say thanks for showing up and being so tough. We're going to ask if we can give you a call maybe in a month and a half to have you catch us up.
Certainly, you can call me anytime.
Tom Minkel from Michigan State University. He is a legend at that program. 2 decades of coaching and many, many more years of competing at the top of the class. Thanks, Coach.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.